Star Wars or Star Trek? It is the question of the two oldest and most vastly popular franchises in science fiction today. So, what's my take on it? Well, let's take a quick sidebar and find out. Hello, and welcome to the Sidebar. I'm Leslie. You may have heard me recently on the new podcast that I started, the Leslie Monday Podcast, or I've also been a part time co host with Patrick and Pat over on the Critics Not Cynics podcast. And today on the Sidebar, we just want to do a quick little conversation about Star Trek or Star Wars. And for the purpose of this conversation, I only want to focus on Star Wars, the original trilogy, and Star Trek, the original series. So, with that in mind, let's get into it. First of all, when I have thought about this question and these two franchises, I've never felt that it's a fair comparison or that it's a truly apples to apples choice between the two. You have to like one or the other. Because when I think of Star Wars, I think more space fantasy. In my mind, it's really the difference between playing Pathfinder or Starfinder. You have all of the same classic medieval fantasy elements, and you're simply taking them from that medieval setting and putting them in a space or futuristic setting. So it never really felt like the same and equal comparison to Star Trek, which is far more a morality play, right? They ask you moral questions, complex ethical questions each week, and they do attempt to sometimes get the science a little more accurate, and other times it's hand wavery. But they really emphasize the teamwork and collaboration in solving these problems and these different ethical questions each week, and it doesn't feel like a same exact comparison to something that is essentially space fantasy. I think another trap that people tend to fall into when they're comparing these is the format. And what I mean by that is Star Wars, especially original, it's three movies, right? And the original Star Trek is episodic, once a week you tune in for 45 minutes. And they tend to try and compare something that has a movie budget to Star Trek, which had a television budget and reflects that, where Star Wars needed to tell you a story, a big, epic, operatic story in a couple of hours ish. Star Trek has 45 minutes to ask this complex question and tell an interesting science fiction story along the way. For me, Star Wars was just that neat old movie I would watch sometimes, but Star Trek is more than that. Star Trek is an ideal, a goal set before us that if we worked hard enough and we strived for it enough, we could realistically achieve. And yeah, it's not going to look like the show and hundreds of different aliens all with different foreheads, but that really isn't the point, right? I mean, you could already see the effect that it's had on science and technology today. I mean, anybody have one of these in their pocket? FaceTime, Skype, Zoom. What about the hundreds of people that were inspired to go into STEM fields because of the show? So, when it all comes down to it, what's my take? Well, I like both franchises and I enjoy them. I love watching the Star Wars movies and shows. Star Wars Clone Wars is my favorite of all of Star Wars. And I love Star Trek and I love every different iteration, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, the original, Next Generation. But if there's some sort of weird fizzling out of science fiction shows and I only can save one franchise, I'm gonna save Star Trek. Sorry, Star Wars. What's your take, though? Which franchise would you save if they were all mysteriously disappearing from the world? And do you have any better arguments for me other than lightsabers are cool, because they are cool and I have one over there? But let me know your thoughts down below. Like, comment, subscribe. I want to hear from you. And I'll see you next time.